The families of 30-year-old Danny Worsley and Mark Banks reported them missing from their Newcastle homes on the 16th of August last year. It was the last time they would ever see them, police discovering their charred remains dumped on top of one another in a shallow grave at Stockton Beach later that month. Today, the man charged with a double murder, 30-year-old Kevin Naismith from Charlestown, pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of murder at a Supreme Court trial in Newcastle. Crown prosecutor Wayne Creasy claims Naismith murdered the men because he believed they had ripped him off in a drug deal which allegedly saw him robbed of $13,000. In opening submissions, the Crown also said their case would focus on acts by the accused, which they claim were carried out to eradicate evidence of the crime. The Crown claims neighbours saw Naismith washing down his garage door on the night of the men's disappearance, and that 2 days later he deliberately set fire to his garage to hide evidence. An unidentified man was also referred to in the evidence who claims Naismith showed him Danny Worsley's body and said, "This is one of the guys who ripped me off." The trial is expected to take several weeks. Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
Over the next 2 days, these 3 judges will be sniffing and spitting their way through 373 wines from 59 boutique wineries to find the region's top drop.
The ones we've seen so far are very good, so we're pleased the Hunter's still making great wine.
The competition showcases the efforts of small wine growers and producers in the Hunter, whose total crush is less than 350 tonnes a year. Entries are up from last year, with new wineries trying their luck.
The quality of the new entrants is getting better. Quite often the first-time entrants aren't quite up to the top quality, but there are very few wines that are poorly made in this show.
And while many people might envy these 3 men, becoming a wine judge isn't an easy process.
You'd have to do training for at least 10 or 15 years before you even get an opportunity to be an associate judge. It's a very long, hard road.
Winners will be announced at a presentation dinner on Thursday night. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
With Brad Fittler being rested, Andrew Johns was the obvious choice to fill the role as skipper. But as the team took their first look at North Power Stadium ahead of Saturday's match, he was still getting used to it.
Yeah, it was probably a shock really, but without doubt I'm just sort of keeping the seat warm for Freddie.
It's not so much the captaincy he wants to keep, rather the halfback spot, as the duel for the job with Brett Kamali continues.
I've got a very big, strong pack in front of me this week, so if I ever get a chance to play well, it'll be Saturday night.
There will be a number of debutants in Saturday's match against the New Zealand 13, including the type of football to be used at the World Cup. As far as players go, Parramatta's Nathan Hindmarsh will start, and the Dragons' Trent Barrett will be Timora's first ever Kangaroo, while Ben Kennedy is playing it low-key before his first game in the green and gold.
It's a little while to go yet, so I'm not getting too worried about it at the moment, but obviously it's a dream come true and I'm looking forward to it.
Although still on a high from his first game, winger Adam McDougall will play his second in the centres, replacing the injured Matt Gidley.
It's obviously very disappointing for Matthew, as I said. An ideal scenario would be that I'd be on the wing, but it's not to be, and I'm sure Matthew's going to make a speedy recovery, and he's a very vital part of this team.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Turn this back into what they call a greenfield site. Knock the lot over and let's get a purpose-built stadium that the people of the Hunter Valley deserve.
Well, 600-700 metres would just about pull me up. I haven't done any training for a while, so but looking forward to it.
Every time Warners Bay Parents and Citizens boss Stephen Naylor visits his son's school, he takes a piece of it with him. There are more than students using the classrooms at Warners Bay Public School, a situation uncovered following a rock attack by vandals.
And on one of our morning inspections of the school, we noticed a hole in one of the wooden buildings. We thought, gee, the rocks chipped the paint. And when we looked, the rock had gone straight through the wall.
With the termite-riddled room to be demolished, the department sent a new demountable with 13 steps, not too useful for the school's wheelchair students. But the problems don't stop there.
The older brick buildings have got major cracking in them. We have a major problem with the sewer, which is to all be replaced. It's blocked. Just general maintenance of the school has not been done for so many years.
The P&C says lobbying the department for a solution has so far got them nowhere.
We had a number of meetings with the Education Department and the Department of Public Works. They've always come along. They've done more inspections of the school than I've ever seen. But that's as far as we ever get. They never follow through.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It'll be a huge advantage in being able to attend accidents, disasters, and have the right lighting.
Mark Banks was due to be sentenced for dealing drugs on August 16 last year when he disappeared with his friend since primary school, Danny Wosley. Both were just 30. Today in Newcastle, the Supreme Court heard evidence from a protected witness. He says he walked into Kevin Naismith's garage and found Danny bashed to death with Naismith covered in blood from head to toe. His evidence is that he was made to wait with the body when Mark Banks arrived at the Charlestown house, heard 2 shots from inside and walked in to see Banks face down dead on the floor. From there, the prosecution believes the cover-up began. The victim's cars had to be taken away from the crime, and the witness says Naismith tried to mask his fingerprints with strapping tape. But that didn't work because they were shaking so much. Instead, he covered his hands with a pair of socks and had to hide them in his pockets when he was recognised by a neighbour. To make his task more difficult, he couldn't drive a manual and stalled one of the cars several times as he bunny-hopped to Warners Bay. Next, the witness gave evidence of how fear made him help remove the bodies and burn them over 3 nights in the Stockton sand dunes, while Naismith told him that he would torch his own garage to put police off his trail. David McElwain, NBN News. Despite design snobbery headlines, Acor's development manager and the Lord Mayor John Tate enjoyed each other's company and the prospect of building a $7 million 100-room Ibis hotel.
An approval this month means that the hotel could be open by September next year. That's very interesting because it's in time to accommodate people for the Masters Games.
A budget 2-star Formula One hotel, similar to the one built at Wallsend, was part of the original plan, but that's now been dropped.
It needs to be known that whilst Council likes to see development and foster development and see development occur, we also have standards that must be met. And I don't think a Formula One, as it was presented in this location in Hunter Street, was appropriate.
Acor says the decision to concentrate on a higher standard hotel was its own and denies making allegations of design snobbery.
No one ever told me to pack up my Formula One and go home. They always welcomed me here. It was our commercial decision for an Ibis only.
60 car parking spaces will be included with the 4-storey hotel.
This will be a 3.5-star Ibis. The difference here is that the rooms are larger. We have a dining room, a restaurant, a bar, a kids' playground. It'll be a really nice development.
David McElwain, NBN News. It's serious business, this sausage judging. The aroma, the texture, both raw and cooked, all have a bearing. But the taste created by the butcher is the big thing.
The difference that the independent butcher has over, say, a supermarket who buys mass-produced sausages is that he can use his own flair and techniques.
And with people known to travel hours to taste the finest from the Sausage King winner, the Crown has its own spoils.
Yeah, the Sausage King in New South Wales could probably double to quadruple his sales. It's very important to them. And even the regional winners have massive uplift in sales.
After careful cooking and hours of tough judging in Newcastle, a winner was found.
It has the pepper, the salt, the herbs, nice lean meat, a little bit of kick in the back of the throat when you taste it, and it'll just go beautifully on any barbecue you like to put it on.
Proving Raymond Torres produces some of the best sausages around, Little Peter's Meats from Lakeside Shopping Centre won the competition in the Hunter, knocking Terrace Meats from its throne, robbing it of the chance to take on New South Wales' best butchers for its third Sausage King crown.
We hadn't entered for 2 years and Bobby cleaned up for the first 2 years and now we're just giving him a run for his money, so hopefully it'll work for us as well.
Placard-waving farmers, There's not too many around, but rising fuel costs have them painting oil drums in protest.
We estimate that they made anywhere between $500 million and $1 billion extra that they didn't budget for. And we think it's time they froze the excise and give everyone a fair go.
The extra revenue comes from collecting more GST on rising fuel prices, plus an excise duty increase of almost 2 cents to 35.7 cents per litre when the new tax arrived.
Every 6 months they review the price and it's indexed according to the inflation rate, and we believe that they've had enough. They don't need any more.
While farmers say food prices will soon have to rise, Liberal Senator John Tierney offered little sympathy, saying they eventually receive the excise back, less about 2 cents a litre in rebates.
It's not really the problem. The problem is oil prices have trebled in the raw crude oil, and that will automatically drive the price up.
The government points to prices in Europe as an indication that Australia is relatively well off, but protesting farmers don't agree.
If they were fair dinkum about it, they'd compare us to Canada and the USA, where the distances and everything else is much more similar to what it is in Australia. And if we were paying the same level of tax here that they pay in the USA, we'd be buying fuel for 63 cents a litre.
If you're a pensioner and you're living on a limited budget from hand to mouth on a fortnightly basis, this can cause great hardship.
Both the students and the staff are both excited. It's a great opportunity to be part of a huge event.
State Corporate Affairs Manager Paul Levins arrived for the meeting, which was organised before the Besling report turned up the heat on Telstra's performance outside the big cities.
Well, Telstra are obviously going to have to look very carefully at that report and respond to it in terms of giving service to regional New South Wales.
With unions reporting that Telstra is looking to lose staff in Newcastle as part of a 10,000-strong nationwide cutback, the question for today's meeting was whether jobs would go from the Hunter.
You're the employer, you're Telstra. Will you be sacking any workers here in Newcastle in the foreseeable future?
Well, there's no plans to sack anyone.
While there will be voluntary redundancies, Telstra believes the best move is to keep a strong force in the region.
We remain committed to Newcastle, and as I said, this was always going to be a positive meeting because we came here committed to retaining our employment base.
The important thing for us today in the meeting was their commitment that Newcastle remains a very important part of the Telstra structure.
David McElwain, NBN News.
The hometown sentiment reserved for Matthew Johns was much like the room at Cessnock Supporters Club, overwhelming. A civic reception was forced inside because of rain, but nothing was going to stop Cessnock farewell one of their favourite sons. With family watching on, friends took centre stage. But those very same friends will be roasting their mate at a special dinner tonight.
I don't know one friend of mine that's a saint, so they just want to be a little bit careful.
But all jokes aside, Matty will miss home almost as much as it'll miss him, as he embarks on a 2-year deal at Wigan later this year.
Things happen for a certain reason, and I have no doubts that I'm meant to do this.
A developer shouted down. Today it was all show, but it's just what these protesters want to see in real life. BHP owns the wetlands between Redhead Surf Club and the Swansea Heads and planned to sell off its land for development purposes.
The BHP and the state are talking about turning the land over to the state, but we still have to make sure the state dedicates it as a park.
But despite years of protests and demonstrations by large numbers of supporters, the issue has not yet been resolved, and BHP again came under criticism for the delay in determining the wetlands' future.
BHP wants to get as much as they can out of this region. They're planning to leave this region, so they want to get out of it what they can. And that's why the negotiations are continuing.
While the Minister for Hunter Development sent a letter in support of making the wetlands a reserve, protesters say they will continue until they get a definitive response.
We have to convince the Planning Department and Premier Carr.
And how far away is that?
They're still negotiating. I can't give you any time. I wish I could. I wish it was next week that they would come out and say Belmont Wetlands Coastal Reserve.
It always seemed Alison McElveen was destined for big things in the world of basketball. At 13, she was playing State League in Tamworth, dreaming of one day making it to the WNBL. That day has come, selected in the Sydney Panthers squad of 11.
It's always been sort of a dream, but it's always felt too far away from me, and it hasn't really sunk in yet, not a real reality yet, but hopefully it will. It's a good feeling.
Studying at Newcastle University, the talented 19-year-old was voted MVP in the Hunters last season, but she'll soon be mixing it with the best players in the land.
Annie Lafleur, who's just finished playing at the Olympics, she had a great Olympics, and playing against her is great experience. People like Rhonda Corcoran, who's been there for 7 or 8 years.
Alison won't be alone, joining 2 other Hunter stars at the club.
Eliane Danilitis from Maitland, she played for the Mustangs this year, was also selected in the team, which is really good. We've been travelling a lot together, and it's good to have another friend. And of course Susie Batkovich, who's graduated from the Institute program.
Meanwhile, some other talented players hit Broadmeadow Stadium today for the State Special Olympics. 17 teams are taking part in the Championship's biggest tournament that will conclude tomorrow.
CSIRO is federally funded, but it's the state government trying to lure the Scientific Researchers' Sustainable Energy headquarters to Steel River. Now, a Commonwealth Parliamentary Committee has recommended $28 million in funding be given the green light.
My understanding is that it's pretty much plain sailing from now on, and as I said, those 4 issues that were identified in that review that was held some months ago have been identified. They can be overcome.
Conditions to be met include issues over transfer of title, parking, compliance studies and a commitment to make the study details public. Minister Face has asked for patience from Novocastrians who expected to see more at Steel River, saying the right developments will come.
There are not many cities in Australia close to a deep water port that have industrial land.
The band played Waltzing Matilda, and up jumped Jai Wallace, the trampolining man who stole Australia's first Olympic gymnastics medal. His silver-winning joy hasn't faded, and he shared it around Glendale Athletic Stadium south of Newcastle. You look like you were pretty excited.
Oh yeah, I was. I was trying to go my fastest and trying to catch up to it and all that.
As Jai left the Athletic Centre, he took a Paralympic memory to keep with his Sydney 2000 silver.
Oh, that was awesome. That was unbelievable. I didn't realise that there was going to be so many people down here waiting.
Next stop for the Flame, Newcastle's Wheeler Place tonight. David McElwain, NBN News.
Big work.
This will be Tony Mowbray's home for at least the next 180 days. That's how long he estimates it'll take him to sail around the world solo. Some final tweaks on the yacht as Tony struggled with his emotions.
Nervous, excited, anxious.
It's a voyage for charity, the proceeds going to the neonatal intensive care unit at John Hunter Hospital. But even Tony admits it's a big ask.
I'm a great believer in trying to step outside your comfort zone, but this is getting a bit ridiculous, isn't it?
There was no shortage of well wishes to farewell the Lake Macquarie sailor and no shortage of tears. Tony's wife Lorraine, 8-year-old daughter Holly and 7-year-old Jordan will be able to talk to him on the phone thanks to his satellite equipment. The Mowbray family took their last stroll together on dry land for 6 months before departure time was upon them. Then the real countdown began before Holly sent her dad off with her blessing. As he sailed out of Newcastle Harbour, Tony paid tribute to the scores of people who have made the voyage possible. The emotion almost too much, even for him.
I said, you'll come back, won't you? I said, yeah.
Tony will head south along the coast before sailing around the southern tip of New Zealand, the first leg of many more to come. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's not bad enough to keep me out of the game this week. I mean, play with a little bit of pain, that won't be a problem.
plane crash in 1959 may have cut Buddy Holly's life tragically short, but his legacy lives on in a new musical. Newcastle's Civic Theatre has secured Buddy the Musical for a season in February. Coincidentally, the show opens the week of the anniversary of his death.
42 years after Buddy Holly's death, his show will be opening in Newcastle. That's terrific. And when you listen to the show and hear some of the music in it, you become aware of just how many songs written by Buddy Holly have become part of our everyday vernacular.
The musical tells the story of Buddy Holly's life and his rise to rock and roll stardom. And it's not only the baby boomers who are flocking to see the show. A whole new generation of fans is emerging.
When you listen to most radio stations, you'll hear rarely will you get through 24 hours without hearing a Buddy Holly song, even if it's not Buddy himself singing it.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
At around 6 this morning, a loud bang awoke residents in Floraville Road. They found the burning wreck of a car in the driveway of one of the houses, with evidence the vehicle had been firebombed.
Apparently it was some sort of Molotov cocktail, but it's exploded before it's burnt, so we don't know yet.
The force of the explosion blew glass across the front garden. The owners can't think of any reason why they were targeted.
Someone down the corner there seen someone riding away from the scene, so hopefully something will come out of that and we'll get to the bottom of it.
Police, meanwhile, are investigating the theft of more than 60,000 litres of diesel fuel from the Caltex depot at Wickham. It's believed a B-double fuel tanker stolen at the weekend from Rutherford was used to haul the load. The robbers gained entry to the rear of the compound by cutting through a padlocked gate.
From there they drained a Caltex tank of some 60-odd thousand litres of diesel fuel, recapped the tank, then left the yard.
The robbers then replaced a padlock on the gate. The theft of the fuel was only discovered yesterday when Caltex workers found another stolen tanker at the depot. Police believe it could be the work of the same thieves.
Well, it's obviously somebody who had a working knowledge of that work environment.
Police have asked the public to look out for the stolen tanker, a Kenworth, registration number WOL 334. The trailers have the Queensland numbers 822 QFI and 823 QFI. David Gardner, NBN News.